Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. Today is September 15th, 2022, and this is Conversations from Stritch. Welcome back to another episode. I'm Christopher Sent, Provost of Lewis University. President Livingston is away this afternoon, and I'm delighted to be joined by Ray Kennelly, Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer here at Lewis. So it's a beautiful day. It's been amazing to walk across campus on this gorgeous fall day. A lot going on still. Still feels like the beginning of the semester. Yesterday we celebrated the Mass of the Holy Spirit, Mass that traditionally marks the beginning of the school year at Catholic universities, and it was a lovely event that filled St. Charles Borromeo Convocation Hall and was followed by a really great lunch and community get together afterwards. Thank you to Kurt Shackmuth, Margaret Martinez, Father Dennis, and so many others who made the Mass a special event for our community. Also, our first fall community event for faculty and staff will take place this Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Pavilion on the Green. It should be a beautiful afternoon and a really fun event of eating ice cream, which I understand is we have many different kinds of ice cream, prepackaged. We're ready for all dietary restrictions, so please come to have fun together on Thursday afternoon. And then last, we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. Our annual Signum Fidei event is getting closer. Signum Fidei is our signature fundraiser for our mission fund, which is used to assist students when they have a serious negative event happen in their lives, surprising event that impacts their ability to continue to study and complete their degree. So this year we've moved the event to the House of Blues in Chicago, and we hope to raise over $300,000 for that mission fund. And as I said in previous episodes, I have a very close hand experience of what a positive impact that fund makes on individual students' lives in really stressful moments when unexpected events happen. So it's a great event, a really great cause. It will be held on Saturday night, September 24th. If you've not purchased your tickets, please do so soon. And we look forward. And then next week, we're going to focus on the Signum Fidei event, and our guest is going to be Father Michael Quirk, who is the honoree or special guest of the event, and he is the former, recently retired vice president at Christian Brothers Services. And we look forward to welcoming him as our guest next week and talking more about the event. So again, I'm so grateful that Ray Kennelly is here with us, and I'm going to turn things over to him to announce some news and upcoming events in our community. So welcome, Ray.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. Thanks for navigating me through this process for the first time. Let me start by saying congratulations to Mark Swain, Professor of Art, who will have a featured show at Ferguson Art Gallery at Concordia University, Chicago. The art exhibit is free and open to the public until October 18th. A reception with the artist will be held in the gallery Sunday, September 25th from 2 to 4 p.m. with an artist talk at 3 p.m. Lewis University opened its own art exhibition August 29th with work by artist Eve Ozer. The show will be on display daily from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. through September 25th in the Brent and Jean Wadsworth Family Gallery. The exhibit is free and open to the public, and there will be a reception tonight at 7 p.m. We're also pleased to note that ABC 7 Chicago recently donated another news van to the radio TV broadcasting program here at Lewis University. It is a Nissan ENG van manufactured by Frontline Communications. The news van will be used for instruction in television and video production of events, and recruitment of future broadcasters at our university, and continues a great tradition of many of the equipment here in the studio being donated by outside groups. Would also like to congratulate Dr. Enan Lee, Assistant Professor of Finance, who has co-authored a paper titled on the dynamic capital structure of nations, theory and empirics, which will be published in the journal Research in International Business and Finance. And now shifting to athletics, our men's and women's cross-country teams will be competing this weekend in the National Catholic Invite hosted at Notre Dame University. Currently, our men's team is ranked number 23 in the country, and the women's team is ranked number 18. Our 17th ranked women's volleyball team will have its home and GLVC opener at 6 p.m. tomorrow night against Maryville University. The first 25 fans through the door will receive a Lewis t-shirt. Let me turn it now back over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Ray. That's a lot of amazing stuff that's happened in 1 week. And I'm really looking forward to the volleyball tomorrow night, our home opener. And I will try to be the 26th person there, so I have enough Lewis t-shirts. And not just because we're in the broadcast booth here on campus, I'd just like to reiterate how great it is to receive that van. Students are right here behind the wall doing an amazing job producing the show, and having another van is just another incredible way for them to get realistic, hands-on experience with broadcasting in this great broadcasting program. And it's cool to get stuff donated to us because it's stuff we might not have prioritized in terms of buying, but it's also really great to have these relationships with all of the Chicago-based broadcasting companies, the same places where our students are doing internships and getting positions after graduation. So, I love that piece of news, and thank you to the faculty who have, kept those relationships alive so that those donations of equipment do come in. So now we're going to talk about our Healthy Campus and have a couple updates around the Healthy Campus efforts that we're making. These are mostly reminders. Remember that we have a new email address for questions or comments about COVID-19 or anything related to the Healthy Campus, and it's there on the screen. It's a mask-friendly campus. We recommend that you stay up to date with vaccines. COVID tests are now available only in the health center, and they are rapid tests, but if you would like to take a test, they have a large supply. And remember to continue to use the Lewis app for reporting your vaccine status and for to self-report a positive COVID-19 test. Happy to announce that we have scheduled a series of booster clinics for both COVID and flu, the new COVID booster as well as the flu shot for going into the winter season, and they're listed here on the screen, starting next Thursday, September 22nd. And so far we have them scheduled through, it's not on there. It must be Monday, October 2nd, I'm guessing, is the Monday after next week. And you can see they're in different locations, so please take advantage of that. You will need to make reservations, and we'll be sending out information about how to reserve a vaccination appointment at any of these as we go forward. So glad that the semester's been we've off to a really healthy start with the semester, and we're delighted. And thank you to Nancy Ryland and all the other members of our team for setting up those vaccination clinics in concert with some local pharmacies. So now we're going to turn to the focus of the day and welcome our guest for the day. And really, Ray is here to he's going to switch into guest mode, sort of, and we'll all talk to each other and ask each other questions, but because we're all really interested and committed to this project and this work. So first, I'll just start off by saying that in April we announced that Lewis University has been approved as a Second Chance Pell institution. The Second Chance Pell program was launched in 2015 by the Department of Education in the Obama administration, and it allows incarcerated individuals to receive federal Pell grants to financially support their pursuit of a college degree. And I'm delighted now to introduce Michelle Clifton-Soderstrom, who has recently joined the Lewis community as our Director of Prison Education. Dr. Clifton-Soderstrom earned her PhD in Christian social ethics at Loyola University, Chicago. She served for the last 20 years at North Park University in various roles, including Professor of Theology and Ethics and the Dean of Faculty. 2018, Michelle founded the School of Restorative Arts, a master's degree program in restorative justice ministries, serving over 100 incarcerated men and women at Stateville and Logan Correctional Centers. Michelle's current research and activism focuses on interrupting the United States' over-reliance on mass incarceration and finding creative alternatives through collaboration with those most impacted by the criminal legal system. So delighted to have you here. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank you.
to Lewis,
It's good to be here.
and welcome to Conversations from Stritch. It's wonderful that you're here in person doing this work. I actually would like to start with Ray, though, because this project began before Michelle's here. So I wonder, Ray, if you could just talk a little bit about how this came about, why we applied for this special status, and how it fits into our bigger vision and strategy for Lewis.
Yeah, and many people may know that are familiar with Lewis that really back in the 70s, 80s to the very early 1990s, Lewis was a leader among Illinois institutions in prison education. And then at that time, the funding to support that, the Pell Grant, was canceled nationally. And as time marched on, many schools like Lewis, without the funding support necessary, weren't really able to continue some of the work they were doing. So when the Obama administration and the application procedures came out through the Department of Education, it really reignited within the Lewis community interest in moving forward and reestablishing our connection back to a program that we were very instrumental in years ago. And so we began that application process to seek status. So in order to allow incarcerated individuals to utilize the Pell Grant for their studies, you have to be an approved institution. So Lewis went through that process. The notification in March, April of this past year made us one of 200 schools nationally that have that capability. One of only 2 in Illinois. And then through the process of application, because I'm going to kind of lead into Michelle a little bit, through the process of application, as we worked with the university community, there was always a question, if we received Second Chance Pell status, would there be resources available to support the program? Would there be someone brought in to help lead this initiative? And so we did plan that if we received that approval, that we would search for a director of the program in order to actually bring it to life. And so at that point in time, we've been thrilled to have secured Michelle in this role to kind of lead this program forward.
Great, absolutely. I'm going to ask Michelle a question eventually, but I forgot to do something, and we have one correction to make, and then we'll turn it back to this conversation. So first of all, we have if you're watching now, we have a email address that you can write into with questions. Ask us at lewisu.edu. So please use that. Ask a question for any of the three of us. And again, if you're watching this after it's recorded, you can still use the Ask Us at lewisu.edu email, and we'll either answer the question or refer it to Michelle if it's specific about the program or something she can answer. Also, we made a mistake. I made a mistake in the script and for today's show, and the art exhibition was last Thursday. And so don't go there tonight hoping to see it. The party was last Thursday, and the talk by the artist was last Thursday, so she won't be there tonight. But the exhibition is still there, as Ray said, with those dates. So it will be open. She just won't be there. So sorry about that. So Michelle, just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell I described your long commitment to this work in the biography or the introduction, but tell us a little bit about how you became interested in prison education or incarceration as a topic.
Sure, and I just want to say I'm so delighted to be at Lewis. I've had such a warm welcome by you all, by SGPCE, and it's been a great start. I come here, as you said, from North Park, and during my time there, over the last 10 years, I started researching educational access and who has access to education and who doesn't, which led me to prison and to Stateville Correctional Center specifically. And in spending some time piloting some courses there and hearing about their experiences in the classroom, they said, why aren't we getting credit? We're doing all of this work. And then why aren't we getting a degree? We're doing all these courses. And so eventually it was a student-led initiative to offer a full master's degree in restorative justice ministries. And so recently North Park graduated 33 men and a couple of free women who got their degrees, all had gold cords, honors, and they've really been engaged in their education. A couple of years ago, we also had launched at Logan Correctional Center as well. And I think one of the things that I've learned teaching and learning from incarcerated students is the importance of people behind bars having an education, which, as Ray said, was limited by the lack of Pell funds. And this new opening up of the grants is really exciting. And one other interesting thing I think about Pell Grants too is that the original purpose of Pell Grants, which began in 1965 with the Higher Education Act, Clayton Pell, who it's named after, specifically said Pell Grants should be available for incarcerated people because it's the best hope for transformation and resetting one's life. So it's really exciting that we have access to them again.
You know, one of the things that in the research for the application for Second Chance Pell, and I came into that work with not much background, but some of the things we picked up and learned along the way is that incarceration is on the rise. Illinois is a large state in terms of the number of individuals incarcerated, but that the segue from incarceration to returning to society is an important transition, and that the impact educational opportunities can have on reducing the likelihood that someone's going to return back to an incarcerated status. Could you talk more about that impact that education programs have and that benefit that then ultimately has to the region and to the state?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as you said, the U.S. in general is the leading incarcerator in the history of the world. We have so many people behind bars, and frankly, the people that we lock up are disproportionately people of color. They are disproportionately come from economically distressed neighborhoods. They are less educated than the general population. They haven't had access to formal quality education. And so basically what I say as a theologian is that we lock up Matthew 25 bodies, literally. So to bring education in, especially the quality of education and with the mission of Lewis, which cares about the formation of the whole person, such powerful things can happen in the classroom. The learning community becomes a liberating space. The interaction with students in the room is unlike any other part of their day. The work that they do forms them with job skills so that they can find meaningful work upon reentry. And so just referring back to my research and looking at how do we displace mass incarceration, I think education is one of the best ways that we can do that. And not just because it reduces recidivism, which it does significantly, and it saves the state, I think, something like $5 for every dollar invested into education, because people who go through programs literally don't return back to prison. But the biggest reason, and I think this fits with the LaSallian mission, is that it helps people build meaningful lives and find meaningful work, and to put their skills and their charisms and their passions and invest in constructive society.
Wonderful. So I bet people, certainly me, but other people, I've taught in prisons at one point in my career, but I still feel like I am confused about what actually happens.
And we actually should have, I was thinking, Provost, that we should have you come and teach, because poetry is one of their biggest passions that I found of incarcerated students.
Yeah, I found that too.
But what does it look like?
Who's teaching, and what does the room look like? I feel like there's a lot of questions about the kind of practicality.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've also been talking with Dr. Christy Kelly about that. How are we going to recruit faculty who want to be in the space? And often it's self-selecting. People people have already come and found me on your campus who've said the philosophy department, for example, and the theology department
Yes.
want to teach in the program, and so can be self-selecting. I think key things in the classroom is to come in as a learner, to be in the space, because culture and the context of prison is very different than the free classroom, as you can imagine. And also to really be aware that the students have been through multiple layers of trauma, not just in prison, but prior to coming to prison. And so having a trauma-informed pedagogy, which is something that if faculty are unfamiliar with that, will help them develop those skills and awarenesses. Anti-racism and anti-oppressive, or the positive way to say it would be inclusive excellence in the classroom, so that the students really develop a sense of academic belonging. And I know that's one of the strategic priorities of the school, is to foster a culture of inclusiveness in the classroom. And I think that piece is especially important in prison, because many of them simply haven't had those sort of academic experiences that many of our free students on this campus have had.
And to be honest, listening to you talk, it's really, you know, it really emphasizes those factors that you talked about. Trauma being informed by knowledge of the appearance of trauma in individuals. You know, having ability to be culturally competent with a diverse student body, and so on. But those are really things we would say about our own students in Romeoville as well. But this is clearly an elevated version of that. But those are teaching skills that all professors need in universities. So there's a real connection there, I think.
Agreed.
So we're not going to go too far down this road into the future, but what are we doing? And I should say, you know, before I forget, in case I forget later, Dr. Ann Rapp has been a really, really important part of the team in terms of both applying for and executing all this. And I know the two of you just went to a prison this week, Monday this week. So I guess I want to just ask, how much can we talk about what our immediate plans are? And then maybe Ray, you could maybe talk about longer term plans if we can.
Should I start with immediate and then
Yeah,
pass
start
it
with
over to you?
immediate.
Okay, so
Because you actually know how to do this and have a concrete sense of reality, and then we'll shift to Ray.
I do, and when I was interviewing and Ray was and Dr. and Ann was telling me about the timeline, I thought, well, that's aggressive, but we can do it because there's so much buy-in that I think is there so far. So the plan is to start in the spring to offer a major in professional studies, because it's such a versatile degree, both transfer-wise, it develops work skills, critical thinking, all of those things. Probably with a business minor, we're working on those pieces, and then we'll populate the curriculum with electives that students would have input into. It will be cohort-based for the first time around. Hopefully 12 to 15 students is what we're targeting.
And that means essentially that a group of 12 to 15 students will be together in each class.
Yes, they'll be part of a learning community, and they'll move through the curriculum together and be in courses together. And start in the spring, run through the summer, and I'm going to let you talk about what happens after that.
Yeah, you made me think I should have had Ann Rapp sitting here and avoided being in the hot seat today, because she's been so instrumental in all this. But when we think about the vision for this and a lot of the work done in securing the grant and partnering with the Illinois Department of Corrections on this initiative, you know, they talked a lot about the range of facilities throughout the state. You know, they jokingly said, you're not that far from Stateville, but Stateville is currently very well served, but we have facilities throughout the state. They essentially said everything below Interstate 80, which is where a number of their facilities are, have little to no educational partners. But as Michelle indicated, they've also emphasized, you know, this is a big undertaking, and we should start with a initial cohort, and we're going to start with Sheridan. But there are facilities throughout the state of Illinois that they're interested in establishing a university partner who could help bridge that gap for locations that have no educational services at all. And so is part of the long-term vision, and this could be over multiple years. This isn't going to happen tomorrow or spring semester or next fall, but there is a long-term vision where Lewis could be that conduit for facilities throughout the state in both in person, and I know the preference, and it'd be interested in having you talk a little bit about this too. The preference is always on in-person education for some of the socialization, but there are examples where hybrid is being introduced, and there's a willingness for the state of Illinois and the Illinois Department of Corrections to consider that more broadly. So there is an opportunity for us to really be an agent of change throughout the entire state at some point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, and the assistant director of Illinois Department of Corrections, talked with her a week ago, and she's so excited about what Lewis is doing and just about education. So because of COVID, there's now Zoom capability in most, if not soon, it will be all of the prisons in Illinois. There are over 25 prisons, and most of them do not have programming like this. So to be able to do that and have access via Zoom, Ray, as you said, face-to-face is definitely the best because, this is among, if not our most isolated population in the country. And so to have embodied interaction is just a really important, pedagogically, socially, as you said. And I'm a fan of in-person learning just as a teacher myself.
And just to clarify something about the Zoom, I've heard various things over the last year about this, but as we've come through COVID, but is it what you would imagine if you hear Zoom? There's still, what I've heard is there's still some difficulty getting to the computer and being, 15 people having access at the same time. And
it is a little tricky, as you could imagine. I mean, the monitors are large monitors, and you can get 15 students, and generally here, my experience was at Stateville Correctional Center, which is very loud, and Sheridan's facilities are much more like a school, like you would imagine to be with enclosed classrooms. So I have high hopes if, I'm thinking about inclement weather or for whatever reason a faculty person can't get there to have the Zoom. The faculty person you can hear great, and then it's just a matter of discussion. But it does work.
Good.
It's not ideal, but it definitely works.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
We have some great questions coming through. Trying to pick which one to go first. Well, we're kind of talking about the teaching environment right now. So can you talk about the impact that an educational program like this has in the prison community generally? Yeah.
So one of the culture shifts I saw being at Stateville over the last 8 years was going from people, if you go to school, you're not cool, right? That's not what people do in prison. To the point where now the culture, because of the students, is to be in school is the best thing you can do. I would walk through the Stateville campus and people would yell, "When can I get into classes?" And part of it is the learning and in the degree, of course, but the other piece is the community. And I had one student who just graduated who was very resistant to being part of the learning community. He said, "I just want my degree. Year one, just want my degree. Year two, just want my degree." And he would get into it with other students who said, "No, we need to create community." And finally in year four, his wife very tragically died last February. And he came to the class and he said, "You know what? I actually understand now that this community has been there for me all along, and I'm in 100%. And so you see that that's beyond the curriculum and the content and the ways that relationships form, and then that spreads to the general culture. I won't say Stateville has a perfect culture, but it definitely has shifted due to the students' engagement. And there's one more interesting piece that came up. They were offered to be housed together in one cell block and to be able to study and have that kind of fewer distractions, and most of them resisted that because they wanted to be impacting the broader community.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
We actually have a related question coming into it, sort of a philosophical question, so I'll try to frame it a little bit. So and for both of you really, but the the program itself, the Second Chance Pell program, prioritizes people who are near release, or we use the number 5 years from release, for the reasons that you two talked about already in terms of job readiness and being prepared for life after being an incarcerated individual, and to reduce recidivism and so on. But so maybe that's clear why that's valuable, but could you maybe talk about the other end of that spectrum, and like what is the value to each individual incarcerated person? And you've already kind of talked about it in some of your examples, but in the moment, in the shorter time frame.
I love the question, because I was thinking when you were talking earlier, that y'all have been educating in prison for longer than the 70s. You've actually been doing it for 500 years. The origins of the Lasallian tradition include not only teaching incarcerated people, but actually going and living, the brothers living in the space, in prison, in community. And I think about that, and I think of, your mission is about the whole person, and dignity, and serving people who have been disenfranchised and impoverished. So this is why I think it's so important to look at all of the human beings behind bars, those with long-term sentences who are so overlooked. Nobody wants to do programming for them because they're not going to be out. But they are still human beings and part of our world. And just because there's a 30-foot wall around the perimeter of the facility does not take away from their humanity and their deservingness of quality education. And so I think you see that it matters whether they're free or they remain incarcerated, that they have access to programming that's holistic.
Yeah, thank you. I guess that reminds me, Ray, I don't think you said this exactly in your I'm going to go back one layer of the onion from how you introduced it. We have the strategic plan at Lewis. We talk about it a lot. One of the pillars, or priorities we call them, of the strategic plan is this language that we use, which is Lasallian language, meeting students where they are. So, and this prison education is always the little example that we put after it. And I just wonder if you could maybe talk about what that general category in the strategic plan is about, and how this fits into it.
Yeah, and I think from a strategic plan point of view, the idea is that education into the future, is taking on many different forms, and the students, sort of the lifelong learning aspect of careers are going to constantly change, re-education is going to be necessary. So meeting students where they are is recognizing that one of the real opportunities for Lewis is to really make our educational programs, our curriculum, our courses accessible to individuals over a longer span of time. And so that could be, an adult who needs some retraining for their job. That could be a transfer student who's already working full time and trying to fit in classes. Or in this case, Second Chance Pell, which is going into the prisons themselves and teaching individuals and giving them a meaningful credential and experience that they can use upon release to gain meaningful employment and kind of become acclimated back into society. And so that pillar of our strategic plan is really about recognizing how the world is changing, how student dynamics are changing, and how different students will need us in different ways over a long span of time. And to the extent that we can make a Lewis education available by meeting the students in the form or the pedagogy or the style that connects with them, that's another way for us to fulfill our mission that we're working on as well.
And really, that's wonderful. And then adding to that, I would just say, and recognizing that education is valuable to all individuals in our society, and finding a way to reach them is really absolutely part of our initial mission as a Lasallian institution, and also very very much a focus of what Lewis's future
Can I
is
throw
about.
in one
Yeah.
more thing that's
Yeah.
then is sort of a partial? I'd like to have
Absolutely.
Michelle talk
I
a
have a
little
throw
bit
toss
more
in too.
about too. Is one of the things we did in this process is we talked to a number of other schools that were ahead of us on the Second Chance Pell, who were already awarded, were already active, already had programs in place. And this is one of those another moments for someone like me who was new to learning about all of this. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about it. Is they talked about, you keep talking about the impact you will have on those who are incarcerated, but what you're going to recognize soon is the impact this is going to have on you as a university community, and the impact it'll have on your students, your faculty, and others who participate in this. It's going to have a tremendous impact
Love it.
back on your community. And since you've directly experienced this,
Yeah.
I'd love to have you talk a little bit more about that dimension of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great, and I was thinking that when you were talking to Ray, and one of your first strategic priority, our first strategic priority is the Lassallean pedagogy. And when I think about that, what I think about is association, right? And being with people in proximity in embodied ways.
And treating the student as a whole person.
Exactly.
And this is a great example of that.
Yeah. And so one of the key things that deepened in my experience and many of my former colleagues and outside students who came in was the sense of empathy. And it's very easy to think of empathy, as kindness or, being nice or whatever. But empathy is mining from the experience of being in embodied proximity association, right, with people who are different than we are. And so I talk about that as mining from the experience of being with incarcerated men and women and how that has impacted not only me, but the many other people at my former institution who went into the classroom. And I remember I had an outside free student. She was like me, a white woman going in, and she was so inspired by the class, and there were a few of them actually, and they said, "What can we do? We want to change, mass incarceration today." And I said, "Yes, great, excellent. Graduate first, but what your initial work is to go back to the Chicago campus and do your anti-racism work, because racism is alive and well on our campus. If you can start to work in your local place and mine from the experience of being in solidarity with people who have directly experienced probably the most significant racial institution in the country, you will be doing the kind of work that will impact our campus." And what that did was actually open up people to learn more and to change the narrative and become a campus that's more welcoming to returning citizens.
That's so interesting, and it actually is a good segue into the next little area I'd like to talk about, and maybe we'll kind of close with this discussion. So could you talk a little bit about your scholarship or your interests in your scholarship in general, which I gather is maybe about mass incarceration more broadly understood, about the other issues that impact it. You mentioned some of them today. And educational opportunity is one of the threads of that conversation. But as you said, it's very different. Like in that exact example of that student, it's very different to be driving to Stateville or driving to Sheridan and going through and sitting down and teaching, a group of 12 people one thing one day, and then having this huge topic of mass incarceration and all of the, and so I just wonder how you kind of reconcile that and how you define parameters and so on.
Yeah, no, I love the question. I have a lot of writing projects and a book in my, ready to go that I will take some time to do. But it largely, I've become a prison abolitionist. And so my research is both looking at the history that connects mass incarceration with slavery specifically, as well as sort of how do we displace. As a social ethicist, I'm interested in displacing this institution in our country. And so what I've found in my research is that education is we've talked about that, what it does for people to displace the institution. And it also has generational effects, especially when you think of women who are incarcerated, because most of them have children in the home still.
Yes.
And they're incarcerated. So to not only be a role model for their children as a student, but also to the way that it interrupts poverty then when they have a job, and those things are generational, and so those are powerful. The other, my most recent publications have been in collaboration with incarcerated students to both learn from them and write with them. So I've done things in conflict transformation, which is a little bit newer area for me, and looking at pedagogy and how inclusive excellence in spaces that have historically been oppressive. Those are my main areas of interest. But,
those are big
and
areas.
restorative justice, of course. Restorative justice and just the role that restorative justice practices can have. Because, I mean, the fact is our prison system doesn't work. It's punitive, period. It is not rehabilitative. It is not a deterrent. It's exclusionary and it's disciplinary. It's isolating. It reinforces all of the drivers of violence. And restorative justice is the kind of healing equity model I think that we need to be.
So in some ways, I know there's ways of doing restorative justice in prison context, but in some ways you're doing scholarship and thinking about alternatives to the prison system we have now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as we close out here, and since you're doing so well, maybe I can ask the more challenging question, and it's the question that's often the unspoken one, but often people carry with them, is those that would say, why would Lewis do this? Why would you put resources? These are people who have broken the law. Why are you directing time and attention and resources? Isn't that is that really appropriate? How do you answer that question that does come up at times, that people will ask or kind of not understand why this might be a direction any university chooses to go in?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, and when the Second Chance pilot first launched in 2015, one of the backlashes was kids before cons, and why are we diverting money from Pell to go to incarcerated students? And the fact is that that's a scarcity mindset, and Pell grants aren't competitive. They're available for whoever qualifies. They're merit-based, so it's not competing between.
And they've also gone way up since 2015.
Exactly.
So that was people who were saying that in 2015 were not correct about the scarcity issue. Yeah,
that's right. Pell grants are available for whoever qualifies. That's the first thing. The second thing is that education is good for everyone. It's good for public safety and all of those things that many people who would resist, would be. And to have people doing meaningful work and have the transformation and all of that, it's good for all of us, and especially the individuals inside. And the third reason, I'll go strong on the third reason, is that I think mass incarceration is it's the new instantiation of slavery. We haven't abolished slavery. We have mass incarceration in this country. The 13th Amendment is our evidence, as well as the bodies that we lock up. And so I think that this is a way to break generational cycles of racism in the U.S. Through creative, positive programming that hopefully transforms all of us who are involved.
Thank you so much. And that reminds me that, and I'll give you one more chance to say some concluding things, but I wanted to say a couple things. So we talked about our history as an institution directly with this work going back decades. We also talked about the mission connection and so on. I just want to, and you both have also mentioned in kind of on the margins of this conversation that we have a lot of great faculty who are really committed to this work, extremely knowledgeable about the work, and we wouldn't be able to do it unless we had that core strength as an institution, both in the scholarship as well as in the actual practice of hands-on work in prisons. We also have this really, it's a really great moment, I think, at the institution to be talking about all those issues that you just mentioned, Michelle. And I think we have a slide about some upcoming events that are coming up this fall, and I want to get them out there for people. And this is not exclusive, but this week, Friday, tomorrow, there's one of our Arts and Ideas event is I believe this is a film, Understanding Mass Incarceration and Legacies of American Slavery. That's actually part of our Legacies of American Slavery grant. And it's it's an Arts and Ideas event for students, so please go to that. It's 1 to 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. And then I listed there's this week in October where I think everyone should plan to give up some things, give up some meetings, really plan to go to a lot of events that week, and it's all really connected to what we've just been talking about. So our annual Peace Teach-In is October 19th and 20th, featuring a keynote, the GROW Memorial Lecture by Valerie Cower. The Sapaniak Lecture, and that's from the Department of History, that's an endowed annual lecture in history, features Dr. Paige Glotzer, giving a talk called Segregated Suburbs in the History of the United States, I think that should say, and totally relevant to this topic. And then that's on the afternoon of the 20th. And then on the 21st and 22nd, we will have our Legacies of American Slavery convening or conference take place. That's a Friday and Saturday. And the name of that is The Confines of Place, the intersections of race, place, migration, and mass incarceration. So again, making the same connections that Michelle just made in terms of connecting slavery, the Great Migration, especially in the Chicago area, and the history of incarceration here at the university. And that also has some amazing speakers and guests and panels, including panels of incarcerated individuals. So we're really, everyone please mark your calendars, prepare to just have a week of, as a community, embracing these topics, and it's going to be incredible. So Michelle, do you have any final comments?
I'm just delighted to be at Lewis, and your educational mission, it really inspires me, and I'm excited at the work we're going to do together.
Great. Ray?
Yeah, it's been exciting to be a part of this on the front end, but I have to acknowledge it's a heavy lift for those now that are going to pick up this baton and do the work. So everyone from Michelle and Rap, people in financial aid, admissions, other departments, it's really going to be a big initiative, but people have been very supportive and enthusiastic, and so we're just excited to see how this develops.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for really making this happen, and I'd just like to repeat that gratitude for all the members of our professional community here who are working hard on achieving this vision. It is a big effort, and it's a real commitment as an institution, and I'm really grateful for everyone. So we will close by saying that next week President Livingston will be back with me, and the show will feature Brother Michael Quirk, the recently retired president and CEO of Christian Brothers Services, who can talk about he's an alum, he's a member of our board, has been a member of our board, and we have a great time talking with him, but he's also being honored at the Signum Fidei celebration coming up that we talked about earlier. So we look forward to talking to Brother Michael. So everyone have a wonderful afternoon. God bless and take care. See you next week.